Welcome to Vaughn's Future Proof Focus podcast, where we explore topics related to college affordability, expanding opportunity, and career growth in STEM and aviation. Hey, everybody. We're so excited to have Brian Bermudez join the podcast today. Brian has many roles. He's an aviation maintenance professor and director of airframe and power plant curriculum at Vaughn, as well as founder of Craft of the Air, CODA, and host of CODAcast. And probably best part of all, a Vaughn 2018 alumnus who received his airframe and power plant licenses at Vaughn. And we're going to talk a little bit more about what all that means. Brian, thank you so much for being a guest on the podcast today.
Thank you so much, Dr. DeVivo. It's an honor.
Call me Sharon.
Sharon.
And we can leave that in. All right. So, Brian, for listeners who may be new to your work, how do you describe what you do both here and through your podcast, Craft of the Air?
Yeah, absolutely. So I have the privilege to teach our next generation of aircraft maintenance professionals at Vaughn College. And it's something different every day. I have such a passion for aviation. My whole life revolves around airplanes and aviation, and I get the opportunity to translate my skills to our next generation. Very simply put, I'm an aircraft mechanic. I went to Vaughn College, and when I went out there, one of my first jobs was actually teaching and working out there. I had the opportunity to teach as a new mechanic, and it's been more and more rewarding every year teaching them. I have a small business called Craft of the Air, where I tutor students from around the country pursuing their aviation maintenance licenses. I also consult and I do general aviation maintenance on small aircraft. But my passion is really in aviation and teaching, our students.
What first sparked your interest in aviation, Brian?
That's a great question, Sharon. I always had a passion for aviation as a young child. I remember as a kid, my dad always used to take me to the airport. I used to watch the planes. I used to go to all the air shows. And I was always really good with my hands. I always knew that I wanted to do something in aviation, but I wasn't certain that I wanted to be a pilot. I wanted to be doing something that was more active, something that was different every day, something challenging. And interestingly enough, I didn't even know that there was a degree, let alone a license to fix aircraft. I grew up maybe 20 minutes away from Vaughn College in Middle Village, Queens. And I always heard about Vaughn College, but it wasn't until I actually researched it and found out that, not only could I get an A&P license, a license to fix aircraft, but I can also get an associate's degree, which was really unheard of in our region and the country at the time, still now. So I went to Vaughn College and immediately I fell in love with it. And reason being was our first classes at the college were in typical conventional college classes, remedial English, remedial math. Every topic that we discussed was related to aviation, our math, our physics. And it was interesting to me. Our instructors I was drawn to them. They were working out there and at the same time adjuncts here, and they were translating their experience to us firsthand. And it was a great experience coming to Vaughn College, and studying here and pursuing my license here.
So did you always like working with your hands? Do you think that was one of your defining characteristics? And is it a defining characteristics of our students that they like to do sort of hands-on work?
That's a great question. I think from my earliest memories as a child, and even some pictures of me as a kid, I was always with a tool, and I was always taking something apart at home. Sometimes my parents would find me and I took the door hinges off something and I was trying to put it back. So I was always, mechanically inclined, so to say. While I would say it is an important skill, Sharon, I wouldn't say that it's a defining skill for an aircraft maintenance technician. We've certainly had students here that were perhaps more book smart, and they've developed and learned these mechanical skills
Mm-hmm.
necessary by the end of their studies, you know.
Wonderful. What are, we haven't even gotten to the incredible demand we're seeing right now for maintenance technicians. And I know you know this as well, that the skill sets that we provide students are applicable in so many industries, right? So it's not just aviation that's going to want to grab you. But have you ever, I mean, in your lifetime, have you seen demand like this for maintenance technicians?
This is unprecedented. You know, this is one of the first times that we see such a high demand, and certainly the COVID pandemic had exacerbated the low levels of aircraft maintenance professionals. We had many aircraft maintenance professionals that retired throughout the pandemic, and we didn't see that gap filled. We had an outlook published by Boeing, and they have an estimate of over 700,000 aviation maintenance professionals needed over the next 20 years. Over 100,000 just aircraft maintenance technicians. So I certainly think this is the first time that we're really starting to see a demand this high, and we're starting to see outlooks that are pointing towards sustained demand for these professionals entering the field. Um, so yeah, it's a good time to be an aircraft maintenance professional. As you mentioned before, Sharon, we have so many different uh, professions that will want our students. You know, our students when they graduate from here, they're not only desired by the airlines, they're also desired by energy companies. They're desired by mechanical companies, electromechanical companies. You know, our students are learning every mechanical system known to mankind, which is included in an A&P license. So, yes, we do see a high demand, and not necessarily all of the aircraft maintenance technicians that are graduating around the country are necessarily going into the airlines. Some of them are going into other industries. So we are seeing that.
Yeah, I mean, in your work as an instructor, how often are you helping students to understand that the only jobs aren't right across the street at LaGuardia Airport?
Oh, this is yeah, almost on the weekly basis, you know, and especially with our newer students and our freshman students. You know, one of the first things that I do when I have a new class is I introduce myself to them and I give them a background of what I've done and what I do now. And a lot of them are shocked to hear about some of the experiences that I've had with some of my other employers. You know, I've worked for a pharmaceutical company working on temperature controlled shipping containers that go on the bottom of the aircraft. And they're surprised to hear that that's even an option. They're surprised to hear that we have a Vaughn College alumni that I had on one of my podcasts, and he's a great example of a success story. And he's working for JetBlue Engineering with his A&P license. So there's a lot of things that they don't necessarily hear that they can do, and it's encouraging. It's inspirational for them. You know.
How do you think Vaughn's curriculum in particular helps prepare them for those fields?
Absolutely. You know, I think our curriculum helps them tremendously. From day one, we're teaching our students, you know, physics that's related to mechanical systems. And these aren't mechanical systems that are just limited to an aircraft. These are mechanical systems that they can apply to a nuclear power station, working in elevator unions, working in a roller coaster, in an amusement park. So this is curriculum that they are getting that they can apply to so many different industries. We prepare them well and better, in my opinion, than a lot of others. And I'd say this: we have instructors that are firsthand out there experiencing these modern aircraft. We have instructors that have been in the industry for 20, 30 years and have seen 10 to 15 aircraft that the students will see out there. And we have a lot of professionals here that have gone out there and worked for energy companies, and so they can offer their opinion, um, you know, and enlighten the students on those opportunities. You know, so it's great. You know.
Yeah, it's a definite advantage to have somebody who's actually working in the field teaching
Yeah.
you in the classroom. But, really
Yes.
it makes the material relevant and exciting and yeah, terrific. Can you so why do you teach, Brian?
I teach. I love this question, Sharon. I teach. I was in a workshop the other day, and I kind of got asked this question off guard. I teach because I love aviation, and I have such a passion for it. If you ask my wife, my whole house is filled with airplanes. There's airplanes everywhere, and pictures everywhere, and books everywhere. And I felt, how do I say this? When I graduated from Vaughn College, it was an indescribable feeling. I don't know if you remember this, Sharon, but I went to go see you to thank you the day that I got my P license, and I was surprised that you even had a moment to let me in your office because I knew you were so busy. And I told you, I remember what I said. I said you made this feel like a home experience. You made Vaughn feel like a home environment. Our instructors felt like family at the end of our studies, and it felt like we got so much out of it, more than we would have ever thought. And I wanted to translate that experience to my students. I felt when I graduated from Vaughn College that my all of my dreams were right there in front of me, and that was because of you. That was because of Dom. That was because of my instructors, and a lot of them I don't think would have ever even remembered that they had that big of a part in my future, my career. So I do it because I have a passion for aviation. When I see a student understand a hard topic,
Mhm.
that's it for me. I
The
had a
mountain's
mom
tough.
that was a teacher for 33
Aw.
years. So, and my wife is a teacher. So I'm surrounded by my younger sister is studying to be a teacher. So I have a lot of teachers in my life, and I enjoy it.
Oh, that's awesome. We're so lucky to have you, Brian.
Thank
And I
you.
can't, I mean, I don't know that I've told you this recently, but I love to ask students, who's your favorite instructor? Right? I love to get the sort of positives about why they like Vaughn and why they like who teaches them. And your name comes up quite a
Oh,
bit, quite a bit. So that passion for teaching is absolutely coming back to you because students are recognizing it and learning and really appreciating the environment that you create in the classroom.
thank you.
So let's talk a little bit about Coda, Craft of the Air. Talk a little bit about what inspired you to create it. What are the services that you offer? Yeah, tell us a little bit more about it.
I started Craft of the Air to start a company that was people that were passionate about our students that were coming into aviation, and people were passionate about the aircraft that they were working on. I remember when I used to work for Alaska and United that every aircraft that I worked on, it was special to me. I used to watch that plane take off in the morning. I used to watch those passengers board, and I used to do everything I could to make sure that plane was safe, like my family was getting on it. Over my time working out there in the industry, I saw a lot of people that were passionate like me, and I saw people that were not as passionate. And I wanted to start a company that were with people that cared about the aircraft, cared about the students. I initially started the company looking to tutor students, maybe perhaps students that were not getting everything they could in classes around the country. Admittedly enough, and this is probably something good on Vaughn, and this is not planned on the podcast's end, but we've done such a great job at preparing our students for their A&P license exams with this new preceptor program that we have. That I don't take any tutoring from Vaughn College anymore because we virtually don't need it. So that's been a great success from our
Oh, that's
college.
awesome. Well, Brian, because people that listen to this won't know what that. Can you describe the preceptor
Yes.
program? And I have
The
some stats off the top of my head if you don't have them, but go ahead.
Yeah, no, thank you, Sharon. We developed under our Title V grant, we developed a preceptor program which would allow our students to review all of the material needed right before they take their airframe and power plant FAA license exams. And it is specifically, this is the great part about it. It specifically shows them the practical skills that they would need. And some people may ask, well, they should already know that. But throughout the course of 2 years of studying, they learn so much that it's helpful to have that review. Um, when we implemented this, we saw a huge spike. Sharon, if you have the number, it's a great pass rate that we have now.
Yeah. Yeah, it's better than 94% for everybody who participates in the program. It varies a little bit for airframe or power plant, but you know what started this, Brian? I don't know if you know this, but because of COVID, right, we had students who took one, had to take much longer to finish their training, but two, absolutely couldn't remember what they'd studied or didn't have enough time to practice because of the way that we had to run classes. And so this became a way for us to help students to remember the thing that they studied. But thankfully, Dominic Proscia, our VP for training, recognized that the practical exam, which there's three components to the exams: the written, the oral, and the practicals. The practicals, which can vary, the test can vary for every single individual that takes it because it's based on your strengths and weaknesses. Students needed more time to practice those hands-on skills. And so and we've been so fortunate, the faculty member who's taught that, and he's moving on, and we're going to have to hire somebody new, so good at providing students with those practical projects and applications to get them in this amazing shape for the tests. And you're right, it's been an absolute game changer. And I do think it separates us from other institutions who have not been able to make that investment in this preceptor program. So yeah, it's and Brian, you have been our Title V Department of Education project director. And so you've seen firsthand, right, this idea of practicing skills, bringing in technology, whether it's virtual headsets or a new piece of equipment, or, right, all of that has been tremendously helpful in terms of providing students with the educational experience that they need to be successful on the exams. And so couldn't have done it without you, my friend.
Yeah, thank you.
Um, yeah, just terrific. All right, so tell me more about Craft of the Air. Sorry, we got sidetracked with Vaughn.
No, yeah, that's pretty much it. It kind of went away from tutoring and it's gone into more consulting. I do hands-on work on smaller aircraft, the general aviation aircraft out in New Jersey. Just working on my own right now, doing a little bit of consulting. But and the podcast came in a little after, so I did that to kind of promote the tutoring, promote my business, and it happened to be a great success for the students. I came up with a podcast to kind of give them an episode on a topic that's lesser discussed, things that maybe they can't get much information on online, stuff they're maybe going into the chat GPT asking. And I try to do episodes that would give them a realistic and down to earth, idea on things that happen in aviation news. And I've had over 60 episodes, Sharon, and I've had many of our students on, and so many success stories. It's been great. It's the kids, they go on, they listen to it. It's totally free. They don't have to pay. There's no ads, and it's all just for enjoyment.
That's awesome. So what if somebody expresses an interest in maintenance, what do you recommend as the first step?
Oh, first step is certainly, come before you come to an open house, do your research, look into to what to expect. And not necessarily, I know one of the first things a lot of students, prospective students may do is look at the salaries, of course, but you want to look at, where you may be working and maybe the conditions that you're going to be working in, maybe during the day, maybe you're working at night. A lot of new mechanics work at night. So, I would suggest doing that research, looking into the basics of the field. And of course, you gotta attend an open house, whether it's a Vaughn College open house or you're listening somewhere else. When you come to these aviation maintenance open houses and you can speak to these professors and you can speak to these admissions counselors one-on-one, it really gives you a well-rounded view. I can't tell you how many students and parents I've spoke to in open houses, and at the end of that conversation, they tell me it makes them feel so much better, and the parents thank me for speaking to them, and it's great when we can see students at an open house and they have so many questions, and then maybe a couple of months later, I see them in one of my classes.
Oh, that is awesome.
And
Yeah. Well, it's so
it's
funny
great.
because so many parents are have no idea why their son or daughter's interested in this field, right? Nobody in their family, and they're sort of white knuckling it, like, why are they choosing this field, right? And I think what you do a great job of in your open house presentation is really helping families and students to understand this is what the job's going to be like. This is what it's going to take to get there. This is what the pathway looks like when you leave us and you have your certification. This is where else you can go, right? And really giving them a good sense of including what they're going to make as a salary, and what the long-term benefits look like if you work in this field or related fields. So yeah, having those kind of very informed conversations with students and families, I think it makes a real difference in sort of in terms of them being able to relax, right? And say, yeah, this is a good career path and a great field to consider pursuing. So, give us an idea of what a certified technician in New York City will make working in aviation as a maintenance technician.
So, admittedly, I think my slide on that for the open house, the figure was a bit low. After a new mechanic it sees all their differentials, what I mean by that is, they'll have a base salary looking at maybe low 30s, but they have premiums that get added to those hourly rates. So they'll get a premium for $1 or $2 for having an A license, for having a P license, for having working at a night differential, working at night conditions, working in New York City. We'll give you another differential added to that. We will typically see a new mechanic get paid about 105,000, 110,000. It is not uncommon for us to see new mechanics making well over 150,000 in their very first year. This will certainly be with overtime, but it's almost unlimited being the shortage right now. There's such um, a scarcity of mechanics right now that every mechanic you speak to, no matter which station they're at, no matter where they are in the country, they will tell you that the overtime is unlimited. If you want it, it's there. That's a new mechanic. I know colleagues that make well over 225,000, working for major airlines in the New York area. And I see a lot of parents that are shocked when we tell them that this is a possibility. Certainly for our students for a 2-year associates program and separately attempting that FAA A&P license, you'd be hard pressed to find another profession where you can go to school for 2 years and yield such a great income.
Yeah. Yeah,
But
I mean, based on your numbers, Brian, I'm lowballing it too.
yeah,
That's awesome.
keep it conservative.
Yeah. So I'm very excited because we're going to try a quick fire round. You probably do this on your podcast. So I'm going to ask you a bunch of questions. You tell me first thing that comes to mind. Okay. Favorite aircraft?
L1011.
Oh, that's going back.
Yeah, I'm going back.
How come? I'm just curious why.
So I collect a lot of models at home. My wife is probably sick of it. I have a lot of very expensive models at home, and they're kind of a museum collection. So I do a historical background behind each model. And I've collected every aircraft that was ever manufactured by a U.S. manufacturer and operated by a U.S. airline. And the Lockheed L1011 just has so many special stories from Pan Am, and all that. Yeah, that's always my favorite aircraft. If we go into modern aircraft, a 737 is always my favorite. I would always trust a 737 MAX.
Thanks for saying that.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and fun fact, right across the street, Juan Trippe, founder of Pan Am, had an office in the terminal. The hangar. Yeah. So we're not far from major history. All right. Yes. Most underrated skill in aviation maintenance.
Multitasking.
Yeah. Yeah. Very true. Right. Yeah. And getting that airplane off the gate.
In
a safe way.
A lot of things happening sometimes.
Yeah. All right. One tool you can't live without.
My Leatherman, a Leatherman, or multi-tool specifically. You could get a lot of things done on that really quickly on an aircraft, especially
Mhm.
a gate call when you have a lot of passengers on the plane. So that's one tool you can't leave the house without.
Terrific. And best advice you ever received in a hangar?
Ooh, don't be afraid to ask questions. I
Mm.
learned that one of my first days in United from one of my mentors, turned out to be a mentor of mine. And he said, don't be afraid to ask questions. I had a lot of silly questions when I was starting out. So,
No
yeah.
silly questions. Yeah, awesome. Oh, thank you, Brian. All right, so Vaughn's future proof tip of the month. If you're interested in pursuing a career in aviation maintenance, check out Vaughn's Aviation Maintenance Institute at vaughn.edu/ATI. You can also visit Craft of the Air, just type it in as all one word.com to learn more and listen to Brian's podcast. All right, last question I always ask Brian. What is the most daring thing you've ever done, and how did you talk yourself into it?
Uh, it's not that daring. I'm not kind of a risk taker, but I went to the first time I utilized my flight benefits to fly. I convinced myself that I would fly right after work to Dublin for New Year's Eve, and I had never left the country, or at least the Caribbean. And I flew to Dublin on my own. I booked a hotel while I was in the air going to Dublin, and it was a great New Year's. I spent it alone. I was single at the time. I wasn't married yet, and I really enjoyed it. I met some great people, and I kept telling myself, "This is kind of silly. Don't spend the money. Don't go out there." But I said it's a great experience. I always wanted to go to Dublin, Ireland, and I did it, and I'll never forget it. I'm always trying to convince my wife to go to Dublin now.
Love Dublin, and I love that story. And that is daring, especially do it by yourself, right?
Yeah,
And you've never been overseas. I love that story. That is great. Well, thank you very much, Brian. This has been a great conversation, and thank you for being part of the Vaughn community. We are really fortunate to have you.
thank you, Sharon. I appreciate it.
Have a question? Email us at futureprooffocus@vaughn.edu. And don't forget to subscribe, follow, and rate the podcast. Thanks for listening, and see you next time.